The Cape Winelands produce some of the most complex, terroir-driven wines on Earth. And most of the wine world still hasn't noticed. That's not a boast, that's a problem, and today, we're fixing it. Every decade or so, the wine world is forced to reckon with something it overlooked. In the 1970s, California blindsided France at the judgment of Paris. The establishment laughed, then the scores came in, and Napa Valley was suddenly on the map. We think something similar is happening right now in the Western Cape of South Africa. Today, we're putting four of the world's most celebrated wine regions side by side. Bordeaux in France, the benchmark everyone measures themselves against. Tuscany in Italy, the romantic ideal of wine country living. Napa Valley in California, the new world's highest profile success story. And the Cape Winelands of South Africa, the challenger most critics still underestimate. We're going to compare them on terroir, on varietals, on value, on the vineyard experience, and on raw wine quality. And by the end of this video, if you don't have a South African wine in your glass, you may want to find one. One ground rule. This isn't a takedown. Bordeaux is extraordinary, Tuscany is breathtaking, but better than is the wrong question. The right question is this: does the Cape Winelands deserve a seat at the table with the world's great wine regions? We think the answer is a clear, unapologetic yes. And here's why. Let's start with the land. Because everything in wine begins with the land. The Cape Winelands sit at the southwestern tip of Africa, where two oceans, the Atlantic and the Indian, create a climate unlike anywhere else on Earth. The Benguela Current sweeps cold water up from Antarctica along the Atlantic coast, acting as a natural air conditioner for vineyards that would otherwise bake in the African sun. The result is a longer, slower growing season, exactly the kind of conditions that produce grapes with depth, structure, and complexity. Beneath the vines, the soils tell an equally remarkable story. Stellenbosch sits on ancient granite and decomposed sandstone, some of the oldest soils on the planet, over 500 million years old. Old soils mean low-vigor vines. Low-vigor vines mean concentrated fruit. This is the kind of geology that winemakers in Napa spend serious money trying to simulate. Then there's the Fynbos biome, a UNESCO World Heritage landscape that exists nowhere else on Earth. The indigenous shrubland that blankets the Cape's mountains and valleys contributes what South African winemakers call the Cape herbal character, a wild, aromatic edge that genuinely cannot be replicated anywhere else. Some sommeliers describe it as a kind of terroir fingerprint. Wine from this region tastes like it came from here, and only here. And then there's the Cape Doctor, the legendary southeaster wind that tears through the Cape Peninsula each summer. It sounds dramatic because it is. But it's also what keeps fungal disease low, canopy temperatures cool, and the vineyards healthy without aggressive chemical intervention. Many Cape estates operate with minimal sulfur additions and reduced pesticide use partly because the wind does the work for them. Bordeaux has prestige, Napa has sunshine, but the Cape has geology, biodiversity, and an oceanic climate combination that cannot be found anywhere else on the planet. Every great wine region has a signature grape. Bordeaux has Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Tuscany has Sangiovese. Napa leans hard into Cabernet. The Cape Winelands has something different, and, we'd argue, something more interesting. Start with Chenin Blanc. In the Loire Valley of France, Chenin produces respected but niche wines. In the Cape, it became the workhorse variety that kept South African wine alive during the apartheid sanctions era, planted in vast quantity across the Swartland and Stellenbosch. What happened next is one of wine's great reinvention stories. A new generation of winemakers, many of them part of the so-called Swartland Revolution, began treating old vine Chenin with the same reverence French growers give to Grand Cru Chardonnay. The results, wines of extraordinary texture, mineral depth, and age-worthiness, have stunned international critics. Old vine Cape Chenin is now considered among the finest white wine produced anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. Then there's Pinotage, South Africa's very own variety, a crossing of Pinot Noir and Cinsault developed at Stellenbosch University in 1925. It's divisive. Some drinkers love its plummy, smoky intensity. Others find it challenging, but in the hands of a skilled winemaker, Pinotage can produce wines of genuine depth that have no analog anywhere in the world. Unique isn't the same as better, but unique has undeniable value in an increasingly homogenized global wine market. And for those who prefer their Cabernet Sauvignon or Bordeaux-style blends, Stellenbosch delivers with serious intent. In multiple high-profile blind tastings over the past decade, Cape Cab blends have ranked alongside classified Bordeaux Chateau at a fraction of the price. The critics who've done the work know this. The broader market is catching up. Let's go head to head. Bordeaux and the Cape, a classified Bordeaux, the kind of wine serious collectors covet, will set you back anywhere from R$1,500 to R$20,000 a bottle. And that's before you factor in the experience of getting there. Bordeaux is extraordinary, but it's also expensive, formal, and to some visitors, slightly intimidating. The chateaux are magnificent, and intentionally so. They know their status. You feel it the moment you arrive. The Cape Winelands offers a strikingly different proposition. For R$250 to R$800, that's roughly €12 to €40, you can access wines that, in blind tastings, regularly compete with bottles 3 to 5 times the price. Estates like Waterford, Canningcop, Meerlist, and Morgenster produce world-class Bordeaux-style blends that receive 90-plus scores from international critics and sell at prices that would be laughed off the shelves in France. The visitor experience tells a similar story. Cape Winelands estates are almost universally accessible. Many offer tastings for under R$200 per person, with restaurant experiences, cellar tours, and mountain views included as standard. Franschhoek's Main Street on a Saturday rivals any wine village in the world for food quality, warmth, and unpretentious hospitality. The Cape offers everything Bordeaux does, minus the exclusivity complex. Where Bordeaux wins: prestige, investment value, historical depth, and the unmatched intellectual cachet of a region that has shaped wine culture for 400 years. Where the Cape wins: value, accessibility, innovation, and the kind of vineyard-to-plate experiences that have made wine approachable for a new generation. Tuscany is, by almost any measure, one of the most beautiful wine landscapes on earth. The rolling hills of Chianti, the cypress trees, the medieval hilltop villages. It's been photographed so many times it's practically a cliché. But it's a cliché because it's genuinely, undeniably spectacular. So how does the Cape compete with that? With mountains. The Franschhoek Valley is flanked by the Franschhoek Mountains on 3 sides, a dramatic bowl of ancient rock and Fynbos that makes for a backdrop no Tuscan wine estate can quite match. The Helschoegete Pass, the Stellenbosch mountain range, the vineyards of Constantia backed by the slopes of Table Mountain. These are landscapes that don't need a filter. On food, Tuscany wins comfortably. The food culture of Florence and Siena, the truffles, the bistecca, the handmade pasta, represents centuries of accumulated culinary genius. The Cape, though, punches well above its weight. Franschhoek's restaurant scene, including multiple establishments that have made international lists, offers an extraordinary blend of Cape Malay influence, French Huguenot heritage, and modern South African creativity that is genuinely unlike anything you'll find in Italy. On agritourism, the farm stay, slow travel, harvest experience model, Tuscany has a 20-year head start. But Cape estates are catching up fast, with harvest experiences, picnic on the vineyard offerings, and luxury accommodation now available across Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, and Robertson. Tuscany's edge, food heritage, global fame, and a romantic mythology the Cape hasn't yet earned. The Cape's edge: wilder landscapes, lower prices, more diverse cultural influences, and an energy of discovery that older regions have long since lost. So is the Cape Winelands better than Bordeaux? Better than Tuscany? That's the wrong question, and honestly, it's beneath a region this good. The Cape Winelands doesn't need to beat Bordeaux. It needs the world to stop treating South African wine as a curiosity and start treating it as a category. Here's what that requires: more export visibility, more placement in serious wine lists globally, and more investment in the kind of wine tourism infrastructure that turns casual visitors into lifelong advocates. The talent is already there. The terroir is already there. Old vine Chenin Blanc from the Swartland is a world-class wine by any serious measure. Stellenbosch Cabernet blends are increasingly difficult to distinguish from classified Bordeaux in blind conditions. The landscape rivals anything in the southern hemisphere. What the Cape Winelands lacks is not quality. It's not even heritage. Constantia was producing wine for European royalty in the 17th century. What it lacks is noise. It lacks the collective, coordinated storytelling that Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Tuscany have been doing for generations. That noise is starting to build, and this video is part of it. Here's your question for the comments. Have you ever tried South African wine, and what did you think? Were you surprised, disappointed, completely converted? Drop it below. We read every comment, and this community deserves a real conversation about this. If this changed how you think about South African wine, even a little, hit subscribe. Cape Town Chronicles goes deep on the stories, the landscapes, and the people that make the Western Cape one of the most remarkable places on Earth. Next episode is coming.